Hello everyone, welcome. This is Pastor Roland, checking in to see how you're doing. Like I've said at the beginning of many of my videos, a lot of you are not doing so good. You got issues. One of the big issues that you undoubtedly have, if you're like 99% of people, is stress. I just made a very important radio program. You really should listen to it. It's about stress and how to overcome stress. Okay, how to really overcome stress. Because, look, most of you overreact to everything. But then how about when things come along that are bigger? The economy, losing your job, not being able to find work, family trouble, health problems. Okay? A lot of you have health problems, chronic health problems. Not good. Okay, so what you are going to do the way you are now, without tutoring, without learning how to deal with stress properly, without the meditation that I talk about, very important meditation, without those you are going to overreact. Okay? Which only makes it worse. So you really ought to listen to the new radio program I made. It's called Goodbye Stress, Hello Life with Purpose. Goodbye stress, hello life with purpose. So here's one of the things I said in this important radio program that you should listen to is that you need God in your life. Okay? You need to find God. It's that simple. Like I've said many times, there's a big difference between hearing about God, reading books about God, studying about God, and really finding God. Or stop doing the things that are blocking you from His light reaching you. Okay? Now some people have a fantasy relationship. You know how people have fantasy relationships with movie stars, or when they're kids they have fantasy relationships with people. Well, some people have a fantasy relationship. Okay, well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the real thing. Now, where are you going to find God? Not in fantasy. Would you agree with me that you're not going to find God in fantasy? Okay, you're not going to find Him there. In fact, you're not going to find God in thinking, analyzing, studying, or in daydreams. Okay, you're not going to find Him down there in the imagination, in the thought world, and in the imagination. That's why people who study about, remember when Christ was upon the earth in His ministry? Who were the people that He had the biggest bone of contention with? It was always the Sadducees and the Pharisees, the scribes, the learned ones, the ones that studied and studied and studied. They would be like the people, like the pastors and the archbishops and the professors, and all those types. Study, study, study. The writers, the experts, they were the ones that didn't understand Him. And He said that, you block people. You don't enter into heaven yourself, and you block others. Okay? So where are you going to find God? Okay, not in imagination. You're going to find Him in reality, in the moment, in the present moment. See, God lives in reality. Most people live a lot of their life in their imagination. See, when they're not planning and scheming for the future, then they're worrying about the future. And when they're not doing that, then they're reliving the past. When they're not doing that, they're just daydreaming away about something or other. Okay? We got to come out of your imagination into reality where God is. Okay? Now that's the idea of mindfulness, okay, which is a good term. It's a good idea. The only thing is with with the mindfulness meditations, God is missing. Oh, sure, they may pay lip service and talk about a higher power, or that, or your chosen spiritual. I don't know how they say it. They find a way of saying it that's it's just not the real thing. You need the real thing. You need to find God in reality. Now, the closest that you've come to knowing God, which is actually you've been very close. In fact, He may have actually touched you already a couple of times, and I could go into some different ways, but I'll just go into one, maybe two, but I'll go into one for sure, and that's your conscience. There's been times in your life, especially when you were a little child, you were closer to God when you were a little child than you are now. That was the closest you ever have been to God, is when you were a little tiny child, before you were upset and emotionalized and corruption entered and you became worldly and all that sort of thing, and before you resented people, hated people. Yeah. Well, okay, so oh gosh, now I forgot what I was saying. Oh yes, your conscience. Okay, where you did something that wasn't right. You were mean to someone or phony with them, or said a cruel thing to them or something, and afterwards you felt your conscience really, you felt bad. Okay, well that's in God's light. In God's light, you were being shown, you were seeing you're wrong. I know that's a word that's not very popular nowadays. Nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. But if you want to find God and solve your problems, see, if you don't find God, then see what I mean? You're not even going to get to first base. No matter how much you study and how carefully you try to manage your life to avoid stress, you're not going to get to first base. So if you want to find God, then you're going to have to admit in His light when you see you're wrong. So a lot of times we don't see what we're doing wrong. We just don't know. We don't realize it. Well, okay. See, a lot of people have done bad things, or really, really bad things, and they didn't even realize that it was wrong. They didn't realize it at the time. They were hypnotically caught up in things. Okay, well, if you don't know, then you can't be angry at the person for that or blame them, or you see what I mean? But later, perhaps, see, and it's good when later on you see your mistake. Okay, then you're sorry. And after the pain and the sorrow, brief pain, brief sorrow of seeing that you're wrong, then you see that God has forgiven you, and then joy returns, and you're free, and free to move forward. So this thing I want to make an important point. Most people hold grudges, and when you did something to them, then they say, "Oh, it's okay," or "I forgive you," but then a month later they throw it in your face. A year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, they throw it in your face. See? Or see what I mean? But God's not that way. If you're truly sorry in your heart, go in your room and be sorry, not in front of other people, but to God, in your heart. Okay? You're sorry. You see what you did. You see why it was wrong. You see why. And you're sorry. Or maybe you don't even see why. You're just sorry. That's all. Just sorry. That's acceptable. It says in the Bible, God does not despise a contrite heart. Okay? So then God forgives you. That's all He wants, is for you to see that you were wrong and admit it. That's all. That's all. And then you're forgiven. And He wipes the slate clean. He literally wipes the slate clean. Not only does He not see or remember what you did, see, but He also does some of His magic to make what happened retreat farther and farther into the past, until one day it's like it never even happened. Never even happened. Okay? It's gone. The traumas are gone. All the traumas, see, are gone. And you're free to live in a beautiful and blessed present. So you need to get closer to God. Now, how are you going to do that? Get out of your imagination. Get out of your thinking. Get out of your fantasy. Get out of your worries. Your planning and scheming. Get out of that. Get out of that. Okay? And come back to reality, and then sit quietly and wait to realize God's presence, which, like I said, usually the first thing you'll realize that God is around is your conscience you'll begin to notice something that you did and feel sorry about it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay? And why? Because that way you can see what you did wrong, and then you won't do it again. When you really really see, then you won't do it again. Then you're forgiven. Then you can forgive others. See, now you have grudges against people. You get against your father. See, who wasn't there for you, who failed you, who didn't protect you. Okay, who let things happen. For example, or who was a decent guy, but there was something missing. You needed him to be strong, stronger than the world, to be there for you, because the pressures were so much. See, but he wasn't, so you resented him. Well, forgive him. See, he hadn't found the answer either. Inside, he was still suffering, and he was confused. See, so just forgive him. Okay? You'll be able to forgive him and other people, whoever it was in the past, that what they did or what they failed to do right. You'll be able to forgive them, and the other thing, you'll be able to forgive yourself. After you realize that God has forgiven you, then you can forgive others and forgive yourself. See, a lot of us, what we do is we turn our judgment, our judgment and our resentment on ourselves. No, that's not the answer. So now you see, now you need God. You need to get out of your thinking. So now you see the importance of a proper meditation that includes God. Okay? My name is Pastor Roland.